Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're hailing from. This is Red Hat Enterprise Linux Presents, episode 27, RHEL by the Fireside. I am Eric, the IT guy Hendricks, your host for this episode. Thank you all so much for joining us. We're glad you could be here. We've got a fun show for you today. We're going to bring on different members of the RHEL business unit and engineering teams. We're going to ask some questions. We're going to just have a kind of a laid-back day. So today is all about you. Those of you watching live, those of you joining us on YouTube and Twitch, thank you for taking time out of your day to join us live. With that, let me bring on the one and only Brian Smith, my co-host today. How you doing today, Brian?
Good. How you doing, Eric?
Oh, I'm good. I just came back off of almost a week of PTO, so I'm excited to just kind of be lazy, I guess, the last 2 weeks of the year.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm excited for the show today. We got a good group of people to talk to today. It's going to be fun.
The real trick is, can we stay out of trouble? That's going to be the real question we have to answer today. And speaking of trouble, I want to introduce Carl Abbott. Welcome to RHEL Presents, Carl.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Yeah. So
why don't you just introduce yourself, your title, just real quick, 30 seconds, and we'll go from there.
So my name is Carl Abbott. I'm a senior product manager working on the Red Hat Enterprise Linux product management team. I cover the areas of the kernel and RHEL performance.
So anytime your system runs slow, send your hate mail to carl@redhat.com.
That actually goes to another Carl who got the alias before I did. So yes, please do that.
All right, so don't do that. Submit a bug upstream, but yeah, Carl does a lot of work on our performance, and we got some really cool stuff that's come out over the last year. So, well, I mean every release, but specifically like some of the cockpit integration, some of the web UI stuff, a lot of cool things going on in the performance space. But before I get us off on too bad of a tangent, within about 3 minutes of the show starting. I want to bring on Bronce. Bronce is part of our team as well. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Bronce McLean. I'm also on the same team as Carl. And instead of focusing on performance, I get to focus on the small scope of the public cloud. So really anything RHEL in the public cloud, you got that narrow focus on. So, yeah.
Narrow is in like every cloud provider known to man. So
exactly.
Narrow focus. Sure, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
All right, and next up, I want to introduce Steve. Welcome to RHEL Presents, and welcome to Red Hat.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon or good evening, or as Eric said earlier, happy Wednesday wherever you are in the world. So my name is Steve Wanless, which is I'm Steve without the wide area network. That's kind of like been played through by many journalists in the past. So I'm also, like Carl, in the Red Hat Enterprise Linux business unit, and I am working on infrastructure partners and components like that. So yeah, back to you.
Perfect. And we do have one more. I think he's still with us. Mr. Terry, welcome to RHEL Presents.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
You want to tell us what you do here at Red Hat?
Yeah, I am. I'm along with many of the others on this team. I'm on the RHEL product management team. I'm focused on the install and migrations experiences of RHEL. So that includes the installer, our exciting new image builder service, and our convert to RHEL and leap upgrade tooling. So and happy to be the tail end of the caboose here and lower the bar for expectations and intelligence. Wow, what a great group of people you've got together here. This is fun.
Well, truth be told, I really just put out a call to action to our BU chat channel and just said, hey, Brian and I have this crazy idea. We want to do this thing. It's probably nuts, but come on, let's just jump on. Let's just sit around and chat, and let's wrap up the end of the year. So if anything goes wrong, I'm going to blame Brian.
Just remember, in limbo dancing, the lower the bar, the more the difficulty.
There you go. Well, Brian, I want to leave it up to you as folks are still trickling in. Where do we want to start? Do we want to talk about people and how they relate to RHEL, or do we want to talk about the industry at large, or kind of the other category that we've got is what do we do when we're not RHEL-ing, I guess. RHELing, is that the term for doing the RHELs?
Yeah, I say we
It is
start
fun.
with. Yeah, I say we start with. What are your hobby projects outside of Red Hat? Just really briefly, just so our audience can get to know you a little bit. What do you guys do for fun when you're not at work?
And Terry's smiling. Why don't you go first? You're going to set that bar nice and low. So let's start there.
Oh wow, what all are we allowed to talk about?
Need I remind you, we are live, so I'm sure there's people that would love to grab a clip of you saying that you, I don't know, do tap dancing or something.
Nothing that wild and crazy. I like to play guitar as much as possible. So especially after a long, hard day of thinking about difficult problems and trying to understand what the engineers are explaining to me, I like to relax and play guitar. And I'm one of those crazy people that over the pandemic got all excited about yeast. So I started making sourdough breads and brewing meads and cider. So hidden behind that closet is about 5 or 6 gallons of different things fermenting away in the closet where you can't see it. And then I have some aging in the basement. So
Nice.
hopefully in about 6 months, I'll be able to understand if I should keep my day job or not. I'm thinking I should.
So now we know what's going on when your video feed clicks off, Terry.
We do indeed. Well, and that's kind of ironic considering as part of RHEL, we're trying to get faster feedback cycles, and yet mead is one of those things that has an absurdly long feedback cycle.
Yeah, it does.
We've got to have patience somewhere.
My wife and I have a blended family with 4 kids. Patience is not a term that we use ever around here.
Yeah, I should mention too, I have 3 teenage daughters who keep me very busy, and they have 0 patience with me. So that's fun.
Yeah, I was going to say I have a 2-year-old daughter who allowed me to sleep for about 1.5 hours last night. So when you ask about hobbies outside of work, it's usually trying to sleep somewhere, or keeping them happy, bribing the children. That's the big one.
I remember those days. Our youngest is currently asleep in her bedroom right now, and I'm hoping she stays that way for the next 50 minutes or so. So, Bronson, anything else you do other than trying to sleep?
Oh well, I try to go to as many live concerts as I can, but that kind of took a derailment over the last couple of years. So waiting to get back into that. But yeah, just enjoy music of all kinds, and also play. Probably not as good as Terry, but I don't get as much practice. But yeah.
Awesome. What about Steve and Carl? Any fun hobbies you guys want to share with the group?
So as you can probably tell by my accent, the hobby I've got is restoring English motorcycles. So I am currently in the middle of rebuilding a 1972 650cc BSA, which suffered an electrical fire in 1978 and hasn't turned a wheel since.
Wow.
So I'm in the middle of doing that, and it's not my first motorcycle project, as they say. But speaking of daughters, my 35-year-old daughter believes the only reason that I have anything to do with motorcycles these days is it's an excuse to be able to wear leather in public.
I love that.
Now, how am I supposed to follow that up?
You're going to have to lie, Carl.
I know.
Next round, we'll let Carl go first.
I do photography, and I shoot on
cool.
photographic film. So I've got a whole bunch of that type of stuff running around, and I've actually got a camera right here with me. Got a whole bunch more, but that's the one that's easily accessible from my desk.
So is that picture
Actual
behind
film?
you? Is that picture behind you one you took, Carl?
It is. Yeah, I took that on my first trip to the Isle of Skye in Scotland back in 2010 or so.
Very cool.
That's beautiful. Although we should introduce you to the wonderful world of digital photography.
Familiar with it.
Well, as
But,
you can see by the turntable over Carl's shoulder,
I was
and
just going to point that out.
and the silver nitrate film in his hand. Carl's
Yep.
a fan of analog technologies. You
Yep.
can tell that.
And you can't see it from here, but I do have a closet full of chemistry. So, Terry has a closet full of alcohols and things to drink. I've got a closet full of things you don't want to drink.
Actually, Brian, I don't know if we've ever asked you this question. What do you do when you're not red hatting? Well, we'll go with that for the verb today.
Yeah, so I have a 1974 Volkswagen Thing, if anyone knows what that is. So that's a project to keep it running and keep everything working on there. So that's a lot of fun. And then I do a lot of woodworking as well. So, and then I have 3 kids. So, like Bronze was saying, that can take a lot of time. So.
So rip the engine out of that Volkswagen Thing and drop in a Porsche 914 into it.
That would be, yeah. Right now it's about 25 horsepower, so that would probably be an upgrade if we were to do that. So.
Okay. You got an extra one of those laying around, Steve? You can send over.
Yeah.
No, they all caught fire or rusted out.
So, well, looks like we have a couple of questions coming in. First one looks like it's for Bronze on his very narrow cloud scope. Question is, how does Red Hat plan to clarify the marketing message on AWS that Linux equals Ubuntu?
This is going to be a fun one. Yeah, I mean I think that highlights one of the biggest challenges in the public cloud is the fact that there are so many free distros, all with an easy click, and they all claim to be the preferred Linux of whatever cloud you're using. So there's there's a lot of ways that we're hoping to combat this by actually making RHEL the best Linux operating system on AWS or Azure or any of the others, and that's. A lot of that is partnering with like Terry on the image building and pushing images, automating that to make your public cloud life simpler, and also working with Carl on finding new and creative ways to not only increase performance of RHEL on the public cloud, but also to help educate and inform customers that not only is it a challenging thing to measure performance on the public cloud, but we're, instead of just telling you that we are the best, we'll give you actual tools to prove that and to improve your own stack.
Great answer.
Very nice. And then it looks like we have one for Terry as well. Question was, when will we get Leap for CentOS Stream 8 to CentOS Stream 9?
Yeah, that is a great question. So it's a little unclear how much demand there's going to be for that, because ideally CentOS Stream was being positioned as more of a development release that you would use for ongoing development, rather than treating as a pet that you care for and curate like a traditional stable release. So it's one of those things where we have a whole lot of things that we know we need to do, versus this question, which comes up a lot, but it's not really clear if like the user base wants and needs that, as well as understanding how much adoption that we're going to see for CentOS Stream. So it's a matter of priorities. So we're thinking about it, we're considering it, but if we start working on that, then it means we're not working on things that we know the enterprise stable users absolutely need. So it's a matter of priorities and a tremendous amount of known work that we know we would like to do.
Awesome. And I think it's funny that in the chat, Scott McBrien, one of the hosts of this show, it looks like we kicked him off the show and forced him into the chat. But he's out there answering some questions as well. So thank you, Scott, for helping us field some of those as we're chatting.
He's got a face for radio. We like to
This is your chance to take shots at Scott. I mean, he's obviously listening, but he's not on the feed to defend himself. So yeah.
Pretty sure I'll get a text message from him in a minute.
Yeah, but you know, Eric, one of his questions, he posted his own question. He's leading me on. If you see that, Elevate is something being developed by Alma, and it's to in-place upgrade their distro. Maybe other downstream builds will also pick it up. So I would love to tackle that one if you don't mind.
Go for it.
So yeah, Alma is doing some really interesting stuff with Elevate. But what's really interesting is what they're really doing is taking Red Hat's Leap upgrade tooling that we started developing for the RHEL 7 to RHEL 8 upgrades. And so what they're really doing is retrofitting the work that Red Hat has been doing over the last few years. They're retrofitting and adapting that to also work with Alma Linux. So I don't mean to say anything negative about Alma. I think they're doing a great job at engaging with the community and doing a good service there by providing what they're doing. I just want to call out that it's all based on the work and efforts of Red Hat engineers who've been working on this for quite a few years now. We actually started with a different set of tooling to help users upgrade from RHEL 6 to RHEL 7. So we have that upgrade path that is available. And all of the lessons learned in the early days of RHEL 7 to help users upgrade from RHEL 6, they learned a lot of hard lessons. And so from that, they decided we need to develop a different tool framework that they have called Leap. And that is the tool that enables a better, faster, more modular mechanism in order to do those upgrades at scale. And then Alma has taken that the next step and retrofitted it again for the community distros. And so they're enabling things like CentOS upgrades to Alma. I believe Rocky Linux is engaging with them too and trying to figure out how to use it. I'm not sure the status of that. So definitely that is picking up some steam. We're watching that activity in case there are things that we can learn. But our Leap repositories are essentially the upstream of the Alma Linux Elevate tooling. We've talked to them a number of times. Our engineers are talking back and forth. So we're not doing anything to inhibit them. And so I have a feeling that we're both going to learn a little bit from one another. I think in the free community with the large CentOS Linux ecosystem, there's a lot of other software community components that Red Hat doesn't support. And so they're going to have some troubles figuring out how to deal with, those users that are trying to use OpenZFS with CentOS or ButterFS. Those are all unsupported by Red Hat. So our upgrades do not allow converting from CentOS and then upgrading because those are unsupported components. And so they're going to have a number of interesting challenges. We're absolutely watching what's going on in that space. And so, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how all this plays out over time. And like I said, our engineers talk. So it should be very interesting.
Awesome. Let's see, just skimming through the chat, looks like Steve, you've got you'd have at least one subscriber for if you turned your restoration projects into a video series.
Yeah, but I think that means exposing the mess that I call my garage.
That's a fair point.
I can see Steve being a YouTube influencer in the motorcycle world.
Okay, I was thinking you might say posing around in shiny leather, but okay.
And then yeah, if the robots uprise, then we're all heading to Carl's house because he's got all the analog gear.
Yeah.
So while we're waiting for some more questions to roll in, I had a question for the group. What's the worst command line mistake you've ever made on a Linux system?
Oh, nice. I like it. Now, Carl, we promised you got to go first.
I think that the worst one I've ever done, because I thought I could do this, and you can do this, was on Gen 2 Linux, and the command could be translated to any Linux, merge unmerge glibc. And when you take glibc off the system, well, it becomes rather unusable pretty fast. Everything depends on glibc. And you know the only way to get glibc back on a system is to have a tarball of glibc that you can go and put on that system in a ch-rooted environment. So I learned that the hard way, that yeah, glibc is kind of important, and you can't just take it off and like compile a new. No, not going to happen.
All right, Bronze, you want to go next?
I'm having a real hard time coming up with anything. It's yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna have to pass while I keep thinking.
Okay, we'll come back.
So while he's thinking, let me say that I'm not sure I can remember the worst command line mistake I made. But when I was in Unix tech support, I got called out to a customer that had removed all the contents of their /dev directory while the system was running, and amazingly enough, the system was still up and operating just because all the inodes were in use and therefore hadn't been deleted yet. And by the time I got there, they'd, in sheer panic, had shut the system down. So that was the end of that as I walked through the door.
What about you, Terry?
Oh man, I was a terrible sysadmin for many years. So I actually, it's a toss-up between two. The first, when I wasn't completely new to Logical Volume Manager, but I wouldn't say I was a seasoned pro yet either. I'd been maybe using it for a year or so, and I was messing around with the new snapshotting capability, and I forget exactly what I was doing, but I merged snapshots in the wrong way, and I basically reverted to the old one rather than the new version with the changes that I wanted. So I lost all the changes that I did the snapshotting for. And the other was I was using Red Hat Linux 9 and not Enterprise, the old Red Hat Linux without Enterprise in the name. And I was using Software RAID, and I had a failed disk. And so I was trying to remove that from the set. And again, I did it wrong. And I removed the good one. And for some reason, it wouldn't let me restore that back into the set because the other known good drive was corrupted. And I thought that was supposed to work, but I couldn't figure out the options to get it to work properly. Fortunately, I had a full backup, so I was able to just restore from tape. But that was actually an important production server. So thank goodness we had an incremental backup from the night before. So pretty much no data loss. But, I messed up Software RAID. So those are my hero stories.
And now we know why you work on the install part of the RHEL story.
Yeah, they did not assign the storage experience to me.
I've got a pretty good one. So I'll start with a PSA, with a public service announcement. Don't make any changes at 4:00 on a Friday afternoon. Just don't ever do it. I don't care how certain you are. Don't touch production on a Friday afternoon. So it's funny when you're a Linux systems administrator how you get assigned all these other hats. So I was the Linux guy, I was our SAN guy, and I was our backup guy. And I think there was one other one. But those were the major hats I wore, and I was the only Linux guy. And our DBAs were doing an Oracle rack cluster upgrade. So I wasn't busy, but we had a SAN that we were trying to just keep limping along. It was old. It was out of maintenance. It's like we just need you to last a little bit longer, through the end of the quarter. And so we'd actually run out of space, and we needed to expand a couple of disks. And I found a LUN that was like 4 terabytes or something crazy like that. And so I look at my manager and go, this LUN is huge, and it doesn't look like it's been updated in months. So there's not any live connections. It's like, do we want to just delete this? He goes, oh yeah. I thought we got rid of that months ago. So we deleted it, went home for the weekend. I get a call on Saturday afternoon. This is one of those situations where like 2 people in the entire company use this as a reference database, and that's where the database data was stored. So we got to spend literally the next week, and this is during finals. I was in school for my master's. We had a group project due the following week. I mean, just a perfect storm of all the don'ts. Don't do maintenance changes when you're in finals week, and don't do maintenance changes on Friday afternoons. But long story short, we ended up having to take a Red Hat Red Hat Advanced Server 2.4, 2.5 system, and we had to actually create a RHEL 4, Red Hat Enterprise Linux 4 virtual machine running on VMware, because that was the oldest version of Red Hat that our VMware-based hypervisor could support. And we basically had to just do a file-by-file copy from Red Hat AS 2. Whatever to this RHEL 4 box for the operating system itself. Then we had to swing the LUNs over to the new system and reboot and bring the database up. It took us almost a week to do this. We ended up having to restore 4 terabytes of data from tape. Oh, it was so much fun. Needless to say, we put in some pretty stringent change management protocols after that.
Smart.
And they were surprised, but I chose not to renew my contract at that particular place of employment.
Man, just the concept of tape, that sounds like something Carl should have.
That's in his basement. He's got his chemistry set in his closet, and his tape drives in the basement.
No, I had this vision of like a big old Revox sitting in his closet or something like that.
Well, with how many engines are catching fire at Steve's place, I don't think he needs any tape around.
All right, Bronze, we gave you some time. I don't think yours could trump mine.
No,
so go
not
for
at
it.
all. I've had the fortunate position of like 95% of my command line life has been, but for hobby, not for job. And so I know that there was a time where I was troubleshooting something and I changed the system time, and that does not go well with 2-factor authentication. So just locked myself out of my own box for quite a while. But it's a very low stakes compared to yours.
But isn't it funny how in those situations, those 2 people that still use this one database application always scream the loudest, louder than anyone else in the company? Let's see. So if you want to join us in chat, you can follow along with the chat conversation on YouTube. We're on OpenShift and RHEL. We're on OpenShift on Twitch, and we've got a Discord server as well. So still plenty of time left to jump in and share your questions with us.
I'm not seeing any other questions. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Carl.
I was going to say, you guys talking about backups did remind me of this time that I was actually on site with a customer, major financial exchange in New York, and we were upgrading their satellite server, satellite version 5, and one of the things that satellite 5 had a habit of doing was not telling you what was going to be required from a database standpoint. And we got to this point we were doing the upgrade. It should have gone super smooth. And the temp table space in the Oracle database ran out of space. And the upgrade just said, oops, sorry, there's no more space in temp TBS. I can't do anything. I'm done. Anybody who's hit that knows that at that moment you've hosed the satellite. And so it's the production satellite, major exchange. We're in Manhattan, just sitting around. It should be lunchtime pretty soon, right? And it's like, you got a backup? Thankfully, they had a backup. But sitting there watching the painful process of the restore of the Oracle database, it's like, okay, now we've got this backup. We have to test, make sure it still works. Okay, now we're going to shut the whole thing down and we're going to expand temp TBS to be something much bigger so that we get through it. That was kind of a high pressure moment.
So we've definitely all got our horror stories, but I wanted to share something cool about being in IT in this day and age, because when I got into information technology, virtual machines were very new. They were, the first time that I saw a live migration between hypervisor hosts, it was like dark magic. It was so cool to see, and to go from carrying a literal pager to getting messages on Slack or a text message or something when a system goes down, watching that progression and going from dial up to now our house here has like 2 gig fiber connection. I mean, it's been crazy to watch the industry just explode, even in the short time I've worked full time. But one of the coolest moments, one of the coolest would-be disasters, so kind of a horror story in reverse, is I worked for a company here in Kansas City where our team used to take Friday afternoons and go and hang out. We'd get lunch somewhere. We worked, our office was downtown, so we were within walking distance of a number of different restaurants. So the 3 or 4 of us would go out and we just, have some team building, and we'd hang out and we'd chat. And no sooner, one day, I won't forget this, no sooner did we get down to a restaurant, we got a table, we pulled up our menus, but one of the DBAs called us, and database was, one of the database nodes or utility server, something was hung. Nothing was down, but it was, this is an issue. And I won't forget pulling out my BlackBerry Pearl, if any of you remember those, and connecting to the company VPN and pulling up this absolutely terrible looking terminal emulation client, logging into a Linux server remotely from our table and going, yeah, it's CPU's running really hot, but response times are terrible. Can we just bounce the box? Oh yeah, sure, go ahead. And so just send a sudo reboot command from my phone at a restaurant to our co-located data center 25 miles away. We didn't even have to come back to the office to fix it. We went on, we had our lunch, and we had a great time. And for some reason, that moment of, this is so cool, I can now do my job literally from anywhere, just has stuck with me for years. That was probably 2011, 2010 when that happened.
So Eric, that the RHEL Web Console is compatible with mobile phone browsers now, right?
You have no idea how much I wish that I had like an iPad Pro or had the web console or anything back in the day when I was a sysadmin. I think that's one of the reasons why I love doing this show, is we talk a lot about what's new in RHEL 8, and just about anything that we talk about, anything that we release, from Image Builder to Insights to the web console. It's like, gosh, this is such a cool feature, not because of what this feature is, but I could see there was this moment as a systems administrator where I could have used this. Where was this stuff when I was a sysadmin? And it's so cool to, like you said, I mean, right here, I can, if I had production systems right here, I could administer them from anywhere. I'll get up my soapbox now.
No, it does make you think though where we're going to be in like 10 years or 20 years with how fast things have changed.
And that's a perfect segue. Let's
I was thinking that too.
Yeah. Thanks, Bronze. So
Bruns gets to go first.
Yeah, you get to go first. Where do you guys think the industry is heading next year? Like, what should we be looking out for?
Well, I mean, it's definitely being crammed into the cloud. That's for sure. Whether or not you want to go to the cloud, you're going to be forced there probably by somebody that signs the checks. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy how that's going to, I mean, yeah, that part I know for sure. The rest is a question.
So I think over the next 12 months, we're going to see a lot more of the progress of almost every executable in the world becoming repackaged as a container in one way or the other. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that over the next 12 months, I think the whole containerization thing is going to proliferate across the entire industry. And I have to say that a couple of years ago, as I was watching the Docker standard evolve and that kind of thing, there was a lot of people in the organization I was in back then that were really taking the point of view that the whole level of the operating system, or the interface between the hardware and the containerized application, was going to become commoditized just purely by this containerization movement. And it's interesting to see how actually that hasn't happened. And the operating system level that many of us deal with is still not only popular, but it's starting to evolve completely different aspects that I hadn't perceived as possible a couple of years ago. And it's interesting to see the way that management of what's going on inside the operating system is becoming such an important focus for almost every developer now. So there you go. There's my 20 cents on what I think is going to happen over the next year.
All right, Carl, you're up next.
All right. Yeah. So I agree with what Bront and Steve have both said. I mean, containerization and the move to the public cloud are definitely huge drivers of our industry. But there are some industries that consume a lot of IT services that are digging their heels in and staying in the data center. So I think that there may actually be a group of people out there that don't ever actually embrace the public cloud. So we're definitely going to continue to see this hybrid model where we've got to be able to play to both. I don't think that data center is going away. So is that going to diminish over time? Yes, clearly people are going to the public cloud, no doubt about that. But I think that the hybrid model is going to be something that we see quite a lot of. And with the proliferation of edge devices in our future that we're already starting to see this year, and I think we're just going to see that continue to ramp up next year, you're going to have a lot of stuff that's at the periphery of the cloud as well. So I don't think that things outside the cloud are dying off anytime soon.
Yeah, and I think that's the great thing about the whole hybrid mechanism is that you as a customer can decide, this is what I own and this is what I lease or rent, or however you want to think of the public cloud side of hybrid. So if you've got applications and data that are really near and dear to your heart and you want to maintain like complete control over those, the hybrid cloud's going to let you do that. But if you've got seasonal requirements for compute capacity that you don't necessarily want to own, then sure, a public cloud is the place for you.
Yeah, I definitely think there will be a kickback at some point where like everybody's like, oh man, we made a huge mistake for this part of our business. We got to jump back over here. And I also think multi-cloud is going to become huge because I mean, right now everyone's dipping their toes in the water and signing those single vendor contracts, but I mean, vendor lock-in is always going to be a thing.
We all saw the AWS outage a few weeks ago. I mean, if you're entirely on AWS, you're down. If you've got a multi-cloud approach, you could still be up.
Yeah.
And anybody could go down. It's not just, and I'm not saying Amazon's bad or anything. It's just they happen to be the one who had the outage.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And I think I remember Amazon saying that was caused by overload at the networking devices level. So it's a clear indication that management of all the strata inside the cloud is a real issue.
Yeah.
I think
another
decentralization's a big thing that we're going to start to see a lot of, and I think that having a multi-cloud approach really moves you towards a decentralized future.
Well, and that just goes to show you don't use US East 1. But
Well, you can. I mean, there's nothing wrong with US East 1. It's
But
just that if all your eggs are in US East 1 and it goes down, then that's what happens.
well, to Steve and Bronson's point, it's funny to watch the trends in the industry because we're extremists as technologists. It seems like anytime the new shiny comes out, everything is going virtual. I mean, that's what it was 10 years ago. Everything is a virtual machine now, and then hardware's dead. As long as you have a hypervisor, you don't need anything else. And then all of a sudden, it was everything's going to the public cloud. Virtual machines, data centers, it's all dead, and we're going to the cloud. And then kind of alongside everything's going to be a container. Now everything's going to be in Kubernetes and virtual machines and RPMs. It's all dead. And it seems like we've gotten over that hump with things like Kubernetes and OpenShift, and the same with the cloud is we've gone to that everything else is dead to, well, we still kind of need we still need a hardware footprint somewhere. And I think we started to see that this year. And I think I can't speak to the Kubernetes space, but I think from a multi-cloud and hybrid cloud type approach, we're starting to see some sane defaults, some standard operating procedures start to surface, and it's too early in the game to say what exactly those are. But I think the industry is starting to settle on this hybrid model. Bronce, you look like you got something you wanted to add to that.
Well, yeah, I mean, honed in on the fact that you were bringing up hardware and also standardization. I think another interesting thing that I'm really looking forward to keeping an eye on is the proliferation of ARM into all of these hyperscalers, wherever you like. Everyone's making their own. All the big ones are making their own, and they're coming out with them every few months, new instance types. For a company like us that's was historically built on focusing in on hardware vendors and chipsets that we knew about 5 years in advance and planning for, et cetera. That's all kind of being turned on its head, and I mean, everyone's coming out with their own custom silicon every few months, and seeing. I do think we will see like a self-policing standardization eventually come out, but I think it's going to be an interesting watch in that interim time where everyone is still trying to figure that out. And with Apple proving that you can get more performance for less out of the ARM chip, I think you're going to see a lot of people jumping into that pool. So it's going to be fun to watch.
All right, Terry, let's hear your thoughts. What should we be looking out for the next 12 months?
For the next 12 months, well, Steve and Bronson Carl answered so well. I have very
RHEL 9.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, thing we're working on, and we're excited to see all the adoption of both CentOS Stream and Fedora is increasingly becoming more and more popular. So all of those things, and I want to echo what Steve was saying. A lot of people have been thinking over the last few years that you just stuff everything into containers and then you forget about it. And that is so not true. I mean, you look at this vulnerability just this past week about Log4j. All of those traditional problems, containers make it really easy for developers, but that doesn't free you of the burden of long-term maintenance and being able to answer those security questions. So just so that you easily package something up and distribute it and it felt easy, you still have work to do. You have to answer to your chief security officer 3 years down the road when that college intern that wrote that application that's now part of a key workflow of your business, maybe your sales process or your supply chain. Mm-hmm. Now you have this thing that nobody remembers how it was assembled. Where's the blueprint for that containerized application? How do we How do our management tools know how to scan all these things running in my environment and report that back that they are safe, that they're securely patched, that they have a vendor supported life cycle to it, whether that vendor support is coming from a community like Alma Linux or preferably Red Hat Enterprise Linux. But those are really hard questions, and I think RHEL continues to show its value of subscription every year. New things like these keep surfacing and remind us that all of these things, these benefits that we say, this is the value of RHEL, that we have these errata feeds, we have these long supported minor release version options for you. We have these extended lifecycle options to act as a bridge so that when you hit the end of days of RHEL 7 and or even with CentOS 8, that we have these options for you to help you modernize your environment. So I think that is always going to continue to repeat itself and remind people that these things matter. And just because something is shiny and feels easy doesn't necessarily mean that it meets the security and the critical nature of running your business on. Aside from that, I'm really excited about our new image builder service. So I want to echo what Bronze was saying about both hybrid cloud and multi-cloud. And so that's one of the things we're really excited about Image Builder. It's this new tool that makes it really easy to assemble the RHEL OS in a consistent, automated way, and that's predictable. That you know that you can define, this is my blueprint of what my minimal RHEL or my SAP workload on RHEL should look like. Now I want to build that for Amazon, for Azure, or for a bare metal system, or for the edge use case. So we're building out this tooling to give you a really consistent build pipeline. Because today, if you want to install an OS, whether it's RHEL, Ubuntu, SUSE, anything, you're using the old school classic installer media, and you're going to be using a tool like Packer or something or manual, and you're basically going to go through an old school install process, customizing that, probably in a virtual environment. And then when you shut that down, the Linux kernel makes changes based on the environment it sees. So as soon as you boot that up and activate that kernel and it starts making decisions, you have to then clean it up and sanitize it before you can move it to another environment. So we're really excited about the way our image builder tool works. It creates these perfect, pristine images that the kernel has never booted before. So it eliminates that fragile process of doing the cleanup and sanitization, and it creates that image appropriate for the environment that it needs to run in. So it takes the guesswork off of and the technical burden off of our users' shoulders, and it does the needful so that the customers, the users, all they have to worry about is the workload, the things that they want to care about, not what they have to care about. Like, what do I have to do to make this work on VMware and on Azure? We take care of that for you. All you have to do is take care of the things that you want to worry about, your workload. So I'm really excited about, we just launched the public beta service at console.redhat.com/beta. If you go there and click on Enterprise Linux, you'll see a new option there. As long as you have at least our no-cost developer subscription, you can go there and click on Image Builder and try it out. So we're really excited about that and seeing all the feedback we get over the next year from that. Sorry, that was a very long-winded answer.
No, that was great.
That was great. Thanks, Terry. So another question. Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
I just wanted to point out that I threw a link to the Image Builder beta blog announcement into the chat. So
Very nice.
if you want to check that out, there's more information there. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, one question I had for the group is, what is a feature or functionality in RHEL that has recently been released or that's coming soon that you're most excited about?
Well, I think Terry's made it obvious that Image Builder is a service. Or what? Did we ever settle on an official name?
We just call it Image Builder, and it's available in two ways. It's hosted in Insights so that you don't need your own build environment, or you can install RHEL in your own data center and have it on premises. But really, it's just Image Builder. And depending on the context, whether it's local or in the cloud, hosted, I don't know. It's not a different name. It's not too confusing.
And I think to piggyback on the Image Builder stuff, there's recent functionality to be able to build a customized image and push it to the cloud of your choice, straight from the hosted image builder or the non-hosted image builder, and also connect your cloud provider account to your Red Hat account and auto register anything that you bring up on the cloud. I'm really excited about those, just because it just makes management and keeping track of everyone that's spinning up machines on the public cloud much easier, so you don't get a ballooned invoice at the end of the month.
Carl, how about you?
So my favorite is the performance metrics page in the web console. In Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8.5, we brought in the journal logs from systemd into that web page as well. So basically, that gives you some cards across the top that tell you live performance statistics across the key areas of compute resources on your system. And then as you go through the bottom of the page, it shows you the historical usage if you have Performance Copilot installed and logging historical metrics. And effectively, you get to see utilization and saturation graphed over in graphs on the right. And then on the left, you've got errors, events, and log messages that may be correlated to that. So if you see like a spike in utilization of a resource, there should be some corresponding logs if they were picked up by the journal. And there are some scenarios where those do actually align, and it really gives you a good idea of what may have caused this performance situation to happen. And that's really exciting, because that's been a hard problem to solve. How do we help you better understand what caused a performance problem? Well, this is a good step in that direction. Also, things like BPF trace going full support in RHEL 9, which is our current plan. We haven't released it yet, so standard product manager disclaimer: you can't trust anything I say. I'm a product manager, but that is the plan: is that we are going to go forward with that being full support, and it's certainly, everything is getting a lot better in that space and a lot more mature, and it's exciting to see BPF kind of grow up and become something more than it was when we released 8.
Nice. Brian, how about you?
Yeah, so one thing we're working on right now upstream is a firewall Linux system role. So there's been a lot of work going on there, which is really cool. And then, like Carl said, the web console stuff. I mean, there's just a lot of really good stuff going on there. In RHEL 8.5, we introduced the ability to do live kernel patching from the web console. Super excited about that. Yep, and just. If you like, I was working with RHEL 9 beta, using the web console to work with virtual machine management, and using the Podman plugin to work with containers. There's just a lot of really good functionality in the web console with the latest RHEL 8.5 and 9 beta.
So I'd like to point out that between Brian, Terry, Bronze, and Carl, they're all product managers, and they have specific areas within RHEL that they support. And when we ask the question, what cool new feature is coming out, they all just look to their own pod to promote. So Steve, you got to help me out here, buddy. What are you excited about with RHEL? Your job title is so confusing that I don't even know what it means. So why don't you tell us what's coming out that you're excited about?
Alrighty, the stuff that's coming out that I'm really excited about is the way that system roles are starting to expand and progress. And I think the combination of system roles and the integration with Ansible automation is going to be really key for people that are building large I don't know, clusters, whatever you want to call it. It's really addressing the issue of system admin scalability, as far as I'm concerned, and it's that level of automation that I think is going to turn the corner for us in terms of of having system admins managing enormously large clouds.
That was a really good answer, Steve.
Okay, I don't own any product, so
yeah, no. As the system roles product manager,
I didn't even know
the
that.
The only thing Brian heard was system roles. He's like, "Yep, Steve's got it. He's smart."
That is cool stuff.
There is a lot to what Steve said. I am excited about the entire, call it a story or an experience, but going from doing all this by hand, when I first started, I worked for companies that literally had Word docs, not in Google Drive, but had Word docs that got shared around from person to person. So there was no consistency, because I might have made a couple of changes and then I didn't share out with the whole team, and then somebody else made some changes. And so you're not working off the same information. And like Terry said, you end up using Anaconda or something to do a basic install. If you were really cool 10 years ago, you used Anaconda, but with Kickstart. So you didn't have to type everything out every time. But I mean, it's just going from an ad hoc pet type mentality to being able to deploy my workloads anywhere from multiple different clouds to my own data center to an edge device that could be hanging off a telephone pole 100 miles away, and doing all of that with a combination of standard templates using Image Builder with broad spectrum configuration definitions with system roles, to individual configuration changes with Ansible playbooks that can be tied to either a host group or to individual systems, to the performance monitoring and management stuff that Carl was talking about. I don't have to go through 16 different log files anymore with an Excel spreadsheet open on my second monitor, writing down timestamps and copying log entries over and going, okay, this system was doing this at this time, and then a couple of milliseconds later, this system did this in response, and then Bronze changed the system time over here. So, I'm not sure which system did what at what time that caused this issue. I don't have to do that anymore. I just look at the web UI and go, oh, here's the problem right here. Here's the spike. Here's the log entries for that exact moment in time. So it is so much easier to deploy my entire infrastructure. It is so much easier to manage everything. Because let's face it, most companies aren't adding systems administrators to their payroll. At best, you're keeping the same number of people employed, and that's it. So you look to your left and you look to your right, well, virtually now, but those are the people that you have to work with. You're not going to just get to go out and hire 3 more people. So you've got to make up that time somewhere. So if you can get these golden images and automation, if you can get these things in place, it leaves so much more to be said for being a systems administrator nowadays. So much more time to do cool new projects, to take time off without getting paged on vacation. I am honestly and truly excited about the entire experience, because I think with RHEL 8 and more so in the past year, and with 9 coming out next year, I think more and more that it is becoming easier to manage and administer these increasingly complex applications and infrastructures, and still use the same platform. I mean, it's RHEL everywhere. It's RHEL in containers. It's RHEL on the cloud. It's RHEL in the data center. It's RHEL on your desktop. And now with things like UBI containers and virtual machine images from Image Builder, you can actually develop on your local system, push the code up to a Git repository, and you're good. I mean, the entire experience has gotten so much better in the last year. I mean, it was never terrible to begin with, but the progress we've made going forward is so incredible. I mean, there's no better time to be a Linux systems administrator in my book.
Right. And Brian Smith, thanks for the $50, man.
Oh, well played. Well, with that, we are at the top of the hour. So to wrap up, Steve, is there anywhere people can go to find you? Do you have a GitHub or a Twitter or something where we can stay in touch with you?
I don't, but you can always hit me up with email at my Red Hat address, so s1less@redhat.com.
Awesome. Carl, I just thought about this. I will let you decide what to share, sir.
Yeah, so you can reach out to me at kabbott, KABBOTT, at redhat.com, and that's a good way to get in touch. I'm also on LinkedIn. If you want to go find me on LinkedIn, happy to accept requests over there too.
Awesome, Brunts.
Yeah, obviously on LinkedIn, like every human on Earth. But I do have a Twitter. It's B McLean. At Bronx is taken, and it's one of the more frustrating things because it's been taken. It was like an account created on like the first day of Twitter and hasn't been used since. And I would like that property, but I can't seem to get my hands on it. So they don't respond to my emails.
All right, T Money, where can we find you, sir?
Yeah, so I'm T Money on many chat platforms like IRC, on Freenode, and what is the new one, Libra Node or something.
Libra Chat.
Like that. Yeah, Libra Chat. That's it. So sometimes you'll see me as that. You even find me lurking around on the Alma Linux chat server, a few other places like that. And then I'm at Terry_Bowling on Twitter. That's probably the easiest place to find me, but also really easy to find on Facebook and other places too, LinkedIn. But probably the Twitter's easiest place to find me.
Mr. Smith, where can we find you, sir?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, and then I also have a Red Hat blog, so you can follow my blog and check out the new stuff we're working on with things like system roles and web console.
Awesome. I'm at IT Guy Eric on pretty much every social media channel and chat platform that you can find. You can also follow Red Hat Enterprise Linux on Twitter. Funny you mentioned that, Bronze, because we were going to do at RHEL, but someone registered it like 6 years ago and has posted like 3 times, I think, in Spanish, and never again. So we are at Red Hat RHEL. So I know that it's already been pointed out in the comments that the RH is redundant considering we have Red Hat, but I think Red Hat RHEL is a little easier to remember than Red Hat EL or having to type out Red Hat Enterprise Linux every single time that you want to tag us. So these guys have said it, but I want to reiterate the fact that everyone that I work with, a lot of these folks I had relationships with or knew of before I came to Red Hat, and even before I came to marketing. So when they say reach out, ask me questions, engage with me, I can at least speak for this group and a lot of others that they mean it. Engage with folks. That's why we did a fireside chat today. Where Brian and I are talking about doing this on about a quarterly basis or so to just bring in different folks from the Red Hat Enterprise Linux team and chat and have a conversation, get your all's questions, but also just kind of sit back and have a good time. These are real people. We all work on this thing all day, every day. I talk to Brian more than I talk to my wife some weeks, but engage with us, engage with the community, because that's what Red Hat Enterprise Linux is. It's a product, but it's also part of the upstream. Terry even mentioned some of the RHEL clones. We're active everywhere. So if you can't find any of us, just go to LinkedIn and nag Brian. He can get a hold of us all. But thank you all for joining us. Those of you that joined us live. If you missed the show, we're live every other Wednesday. Every other Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and Twitch. Carl, Steve, Terry, Bronze, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for giving up an hour of your day. You're either winding down and don't feel like taking on anything new as we get to the end of the year, or you're just bored out of your mind and decided to spend an hour with us. But definitely appreciate the 4 of you joining us today. Brian, the only other thing I can think to mention is this is it for 2021. RHEL Presents this is it. We're done. But I had to look it up, actually. Our next show will be January 11th, and I believe we'll be talking about Microsoft SQL on RHEL. So we'll be talking about the system role that just came out. We'll talk about some of the web UI interactions with SQL Server on RHEL, as well as insights. So
we had some good
then,
TuneD improvements that dropped in 8.5 for that as well. So better
Definitely.
performance as you go on through the RHEL 8 series.
Definitely. Really excited to talk about Microsoft SQL here in just a few weeks. But until then, thank you all very much. Have a wonderful set of holidays, and we look forward to chatting again soon. Till then, thank you all.
Thanks
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.